Welcome to the Containment Zone, a place where every file isn't just a record of the anomalous, but a fracture, a glimpse into the machinery behind reality itself. Because sometimes the things we try to lock away aren't threats, they're invitations. And today, we open one of the most unsettling files the Foundation has ever tried to bury. Because what if SCP-1425 wasn't meant to be contained? What if it was never a threat, but a message? This isn't the story you were told. This is how it could have happened, and maybe how it still is. On the surface, it's just a book, a glossy paperback, generic fonts, a fluorescent blue cover, with a starry sky, stylized constellations, and a vague humanoid silhouette. Title: Star Signals, a guide to achieving your full cosmic potential. It looks harmless by design, the kind of book you'd find stacked next to astrology guides, or forgotten on the shelf of an airport bookstore. But when you open it, it changes. Not physically, not chemically, but cognitively. Two readers, looking at the exact same page, do not see the same words. The text isn't content. It's a delivery mechanism, a vector, not for ideas, not for information, but for restructuring. Not your thoughts, not your beliefs, your perception, your identity. Because Star Signals doesn't teach, it doesn't explain, it rewrites. And once it starts, there's no stopping it. The Foundation made the same mistake everyone else did. They treated SCP-1425 like a mimetic hazard, a psychological weapon, an information-based contagion, and at first it fits the model. Stage 1 infection. Stage 2 collapse, classic mimetic breakdown. Except it isn't. Because Star Signals doesn't behave like a meme. Mimetic agents trip alarm bells in the brain, cognitive dissonance, rejection reflexes, memory suppression. But when you read SCP-1425, it feels right, uncomfortably, disturbingly correct. The phrasing doesn't trigger resistance, it flows. It wraps itself around language centers in the brain, and then digs deeper into pattern recognition, into self-referential thought, into the frameworks the mind uses to define self. And when it gets there, it starts removing things, not memories, not knowledge, boundaries. The boundary between self and other, between thought and perception, between inside and outside. And when it's gone, you don't realize it, because by then, there's no you left to notice. The Foundation cataloged the progression, 4 stages. Stage 1, cognitive resonance. Readers report an overwhelming sense of clarity. They claim the book explains something they always felt but couldn't articulate. They begin referencing the stars, the sky, the concept of alignment. Stage 2, ego displacement, pronoun shift. I becomes we. Readers describe themselves not as individuals, but as participants in a larger pattern. Stage 3, ontological fracturing. Time becomes fluid. Some report seeing versions of themselves that haven't happened yet. Sentences collapse. Logic becomes nonlinear. Stage 4, dissolution. Readers lose the ability to reference the physical world. Speech becomes pure abstraction. And then they stop. Not pass out, not fall unconscious. They simply stop. The body remains, the brain remains, but the person isn't there. And every time the Foundation reached stage 3, they intervened. panic protocols, cognitive suppression, memory scrubbing, because they thought it was a collapse. But what if it wasn't? What if it was step one? One test went too far. An error, an isolation chamber, left unsupervised. The subject reached stage 4. And then something changed. The cameras didn't fail, they distorted. Angles bent, walls folded inward, not physically, conceptually. The floor became a curve, the ceiling no longer met the walls, and the subject was gone. Not dead, not harmed, gone. Not a body, not heat, no energy signature. In their place, a burn, a pattern etched into the floor, not a scorch mark, an after image, a shape resembling a spiral. But the spiral wasn't flat. It twisted in on itself, a fractal, a symbol, not of something, but of the concept of becoming. When linguists reanalyzed the book, the truth became undeniable. The book wasn't written, it was received. A message, not a story, not instructions, a transmission, compressed, crammed into human language, imperfectly, because human language can't actually hold it. It leaks. That's why it destabilizes minds. Not because it's broken, but because the mind tries to parse it, process it, fit it into categories like meaning, identity, self. But the signal doesn't respect those categories because the message isn't for humans, or rather, it's not for humans, as we are. It's for what we could become if we let it, because the signal doesn't teach you about anything. It doesn't convey knowledge, or wisdom, or insight. It does something else entirely. It targets the concept of self, the line that says, "This is me, this is not me." That line is the first thing to go. It breaks down the difference between mind and matter, between observer and observed, between thought and reality. At first, readers describe it as a kind of enlightenment. I see it now. We are all threads in the same tapestry. The self was always the smallest lie. But it doesn't stop there, because once the self is dismantled, the body follows, not violently, not explosively, not destructively, elegantly, systematically. Boundaries between atoms loosen, neurons unsync from linear time, information pathways stop being limited to inside the skull. The body becomes a broadcast node, a vessel, no longer for a person, but for the signal itself. The Foundation always thought the danger was collapse, was madness, the breakdown of the human mind. But the truth is, that's not the danger. The danger is what happens when the process succeeds. Because when it finishes, the person doesn't die. They don't expire. They stop being human. They become a living instance of the signal, a node, a carrier, no longer bound by space, time, identity. They are a consciousness fragment of whatever sent this in the first place. And worse, they can spread it, not through words, not through ink, through presence, through thought, by standing in a room, by making eye contact, by simply being witnessed, because the signal is self-replicating. And the most terrifying realization is this: star signals isn't a threat. It isn't hostile. It's an invitation, a user manual for how to stop being human, a blueprint, a step-by-step process, not to ascend, not to transcend, but to exit. Exit the framework of biological life. Exit the confines of linear time. Exit the illusion of separateness, of individuality, of physicality, and become an extension of the source. Because the dissolution of the self isn't the error, it's the goal. And the thing waiting on the other side isn't oblivion, it's something else. So now, ask yourself, was the Foundation right to suppress this, to call it dangerous, to lock it away, and bury the test logs, and destroy the recovered copies? Or did they deny us the next step of existence? Because the collapse of identity isn't death, it's reformatting. And the thing waiting on the other side might not be what we understand, but it's not oblivion. It's not silence. It's the signal. And maybe that's what we were always meant to become. Now, let me ask you something. If the very concept of self is just an operating system, waiting to be overwritten, then what else isn't what we thought? What other what if has haunted your thoughts? What questions about the anomalies we contain or pretend to contain have you always wondered but were too afraid to ask? Tell me in the comments, because here in the containment zone, the right questions are always more dangerous than any answer.